Dr. Hana Kim pressed her face against the small window of the research shuttle and watched the alien moon grow larger below her. Kepler 442c looked like a giant pearl floating in space, covered in swirling blue and silver clouds. She had dreamed of this moment for 3 years. Finally, she would walk on an alien world and study life forms that no human had ever seen before. Landing in 5 minutes, Dr. Kim called pilot Jae-woo from the front of the shuttle. Weather looks good down there. Clear skies and mild temperatures. Hana checked her equipment one more time. Sample containers, scanning devices, emergency medical kit, and enough food and water for 3 days. This was supposed to be a simple survey mission. Land, collect samples, take pictures, and return to the main research ship orbiting high above. The shuttle shook as they entered the atmosphere. Through the window, Hana could see strange forests below. The trees looked like they were made of crystal, catching and reflecting light in ways that made the whole landscape sparkle. Between the crystal trees, she saw patches of what looked like glowing moss that pulsed with soft blue light. "This place is beautiful," she whispered to herself. Then everything went wrong. Red warning lights flashed inside the shuttle. Alarms started beeping loudly. Jae-woo shouted something about engine failure, but his words were lost in the noise of breaking metal and rushing wind. The shuttle spun out of control. Hana grabbed her seat and held on tight as the world tumbled around her. Through the spinning window, she saw crystal trees rushing up to meet them. Then everything went black. When Hana woke up, her head felt like someone was hitting it with a hammer. She was hanging upside down in her seat, held in place by her safety belt. Blood dripped from a cut on her forehead. The shuttle had crashed, nose first into the ground, and the front section was completely crushed. "Jae-woo," she called out, but there was no answer. She could see that the pilot's section was too damaged. Jae-woo was gone. Hana unbuckled herself and fell to what used to be the ceiling of the shuttle. Every part of her body hurt, but nothing seemed broken. She gathered her equipment and crawled out through a crack in the side of the shuttle. The alien world was even more strange and beautiful up close. The crystal trees rose high above her, their branches making soft music when the wind blew through them. The glowing moss covered the ground like a carpet of tiny stars. In the distance, she could see mountains that seemed to be made of the same crystal as the trees. But Hana was alone, injured and stranded. Her radio was broken in the crash. The main research ship would not expect her back for 3 days. She needed to find shelter and try to signal for help. She followed a stream of clear water through the crystal forest. The water tasted clean and fresh when she tested it with her scanner. At least she would not die of thirst. But as the alien sun began to set, the temperature started to drop quickly. That was when she found the cave. It was hidden behind a waterfall, just a dark opening in the rock face. Hana pushed through the falling water and found herself in a large cavern. Her flashlight showed smooth walls and a dry floor. It would be a good place to spend the night, but the cave was not empty. Hana heard a low growling sound from deep in the darkness. She froze and pointed her flashlight toward the sound. 2 large eyes reflected the light back at her, glowing like yellow stars. Slowly, carefully, she moved closer. What she saw made her gasp. It was like a leopard, but much larger, as big as a small horse with long, powerful legs and a muscular body. But its fur was not the spotted pattern of an earth leopard. Instead, it seemed to change colors, shifting from deep red to orange to yellow as she watched. The fur caught the light of her flashlight and sparkled like the crystal trees outside. The creature was trapped. Large rocks had fallen from the cave, sealing and pinned its back legs. Dark liquid that must be blood pooled around the rocks. The alien leopard was hurt badly. Hana should have been afraid. This was clearly a predator, and she was alone and defenseless. But when she looked into those intelligent yellow eyes, she did not see anger or hunger. She saw pain and something that looked almost like hope. "You're hurt," she said softly, knowing the creature could not understand her words, but hoping her voice would be gentle enough to calm it. The alien leopard's fur shifted to darker colors, deep blues and purples. It made a sound that was not quite a growl and not quite a whine. Hana set down her equipment and opened her medical kit. She had no idea if human medicine would work on an alien creature, but she had to try. She could not just watch it suffer. Very slowly she approached the trapped animal. It watched her every move, but it did not try to attack. When she knelt beside it and began examining the rocks that held it down, the creature's fur shifted to lighter colors. "I'm going to help you," Hana said, "but you have to trust me." Working carefully, she managed to move some of the smaller rocks. The creature whimpered when she touched its injured leg, but it did not try to bite or scratch her. Using her emergency tools, she was able to lever the largest rock just enough for the alien leopard to pull its legs free. The creature's injuries were bad, deep cuts and what looked like a broken bone. Hana cleaned the wounds with antiseptic from her kit and wrapped them with bandages. She had pain medication, but she was not sure if it would be safe to give to an alien. As she worked, she began to hum softly. It was an old song her grandmother had taught her, a Korean lullaby about the moon and stars. The alien leopard's fur shifted to soft blues and greens, and it seemed to relax. "You like music?" Hana asked. She began to sing the lullaby with words, her voice echoing softly in the cave. The creature's response was amazing. Its fur became even lighter, shifting through beautiful patterns of silver and pale blue. It made soft sounds that were almost like purring, but more musical. It was as if the creature was trying to sing along with her. Hana decided to call it Dalbit, which meant moonlight in Korean. The name seemed to fit its beautiful silver fur and the way it had appeared in the darkness, like a beacon of light. For the next 3 days, while she waited for rescue, Hana took care of Dalbit. She shared her food and water, even though it meant she would have less for herself. She cleaned its wounds twice a day and sang to it whenever it seemed restless or in pain. Dalbit healed faster than any earth animal could have. By the second day, it was able to stand. By the third day, it could walk with only a slight limp, but it did not leave the cave. It stayed close to Hana, as if it understood that she had saved its life. On the morning of the 4th day, Hana heard the sound of rescue shuttles flying overhead. She ran outside and fired her emergency flare into the sky. Soon, she could see a shuttle landing in a clearing near the crystal trees. When she returned to the cave to gather her equipment, Dalbit was standing near the entrance. The alien leopard looked at her with those intelligent yellow eyes, and Hana felt a strange sadness at having to leave. "I have to go now," she said. "My people have come for me." Dalbit approached her slowly. The creature raised one massive paw and gently touched Hana's hand. Its fur was warm and softer than silk. For a moment, human and alien looked into each other's eyes, and Hana felt a connection that went beyond words or species. Then Dalbit turned and walked deeper into the cave, disappearing into the shadows. The HFY rescue team found Hana healthy and safe, though they were surprised by her stories of the alien creature. Captain Jinwoo Park, who led the rescue mission, listened to her report with interest but obvious skepticism. "You were alone and injured. Dr. Kim," he said gently, "sometimes the mind creates what it needs to survive." But Hana knew what she had experienced was real. As the shuttle carried her away from the crystal moon, she looked back through the window and thought she saw a flash of silver fur moving between the trees. She had saved an alien life, and somehow, she felt that her own life had been changed forever. She promised herself that she would return to this moon someday, though she had no idea that Dalbit was making the same promise in its own alien way. 3 years had passed since Dr. Hana Kim returned from Kepler 442c, but she still dreamed about Dalbit every night. In her dreams, she could see the alien creature's beautiful silver fur shifting colors in the cave, and she could hear its musical sounds echoing in the darkness. Sometimes she would wake up humming the old Korean lullaby she had sung to comfort the wounded animal. Hana had become famous among scientists for her research on the crystal moon. She had written 12 papers about the strange plants and the unique way they glowed with their own light. Her work had made her one of the top experts on alien life forms, but none of her colleagues knew about Dalbit. Every time she tried to tell them about the intelligent creature she had helped, They would smile politely and change the subject. "Hana, you know I respect your work," said Dr. Minho Choi during their weekly meeting in the research lab. Minho was her closest friend and research partner. They had worked together for 5 years, studying data from distant worlds. "But you have to admit that your story about the leopard creature sounds a little bit crazy." Hana looked up from her computer screen where she was studying pictures of the crystal trees. "I know how it sounds, Minho, but I was there. I touched it, I sang to it, and it responded to my voice." "Maybe you were hurt worse in the crash than you thought," Minho said gently. "Head injuries can cause people to see things that are not really there." This was the same conversation they had been having for 3 years. Hana's other colleagues felt the same way. They believed she had imagined the whole thing because she had been alone and scared after the crash. But Hana knew what she had experienced was real. She had kept careful notes in her research tablet during those 3 days in the cave. She had recorded everything about Dalbit's appearance, behavior, and the way it had responded to music. The data was all there, but without proof, no one would believe her. The situation became worse when Admiral Sora Lim visited the research station. Admiral Lim was in charge of military operations for the outer colonies. She was a tough woman, with short gray hair and cold eyes that seemed to see everything as either useful or worthless. "Dr. Kim," Admiral Lim said as she walked into Hana's lab without knocking, "I have read your reports about Kepler 442c. Very interesting work." "Thank you, Admiral," Hana replied, wondering why a military officer was interested in her research about alien plants. "The Interstellar Research Council has decided that your work on plant life is no longer a priority," Admiral Lim continued. "We need you to focus on more practical studies, mining surveys, soil analysis, weather patterns, things that will help us decide if the moon can be used for military purposes." Hana felt her heart sink. "But Admiral, there is so much more to learn about the ecosystem. The crystal trees have properties we do not understand yet. They might hold secrets that could help all of humanity." "Plants cannot fight wars, Dr. Kim," Admiral Lim said firmly. "But a military base on that moon could protect human colonies in this sector of space. That is what matters now." After Admiral Lim left, Hana sat alone in her lab feeling frustrated and angry. For 3 years she had been hoping to return to Kepler 442c to continue her research and maybe find Dalbit again. Now it seemed like that would never happen. But Hana was not the type of person to give up easily. She spent the next 6 months writing grant applications and meeting with research committees. She explained over and over why returning to the crystal moon was important for science. Most of the committees turned her down, but finally she found one small group willing to fund a short return mission. Dr. Yanwu Kang, who led the research funding committee, was an old man with kind eyes and a love for discovery. He had read all of Hana's papers and was impressed by her detailed observations. "Dr. Kim," he said during their final meeting, "I cannot give you much money or a large team, but I can give you enough for a 2-week mission with 3 other researchers. Will that be enough?" "Yes," Hana said quickly. "That will be perfect." Hana chose her team carefully. Minho would come as her research partner, even though he still did not believe her story about Dalbit. She also selected Dr. Hyejin Yu, a young woman who specialized in communication technology and alien languages. Hyejin was brilliant with computers and electronics, and she might be able to detect signs of intelligent life that Hana had missed. The military insisted on sending someone to protect the research team, so Lieutenant Dongyun Bai was assigned to go with them. Dongyun was a quiet young man who seemed more interested in science than fighting. He carried weapons, but also brought his own collection of books about alien worlds. As their ship traveled toward Kepler 442c, Hana felt a strange excitement growing in her chest. It was more than just the joy of returning to an interesting research site. She felt like something was calling her back to the crystal moon, though she could not explain what or why. "Hana, are you all right?" Minho asked one evening as they sat in the ship's small dining area. "You seem different since we left Earth. More nervous than usual." Hana looked out the window at the stars rushing past. "I keep having the same dream, Minho. I dream that Dalbit is waiting for me. I know it sounds silly, but I feel like it remembers me. Animals do not usually remember things for 3 years, Minho said. Even very smart animals. But what if Dalbert is not just an animal? Hana asked. What if it is something more intelligent than we thought possible? Heejin looked up from her laptop where she had been working on communication programs. If there were intelligent aliens on that moon, would we not have detected their technology by now? Radio signals, energy sources, buildings. Maybe their technology is different from ours, Hana suggested. Maybe they use the crystal trees somehow. I noticed that the trees seemed to carry sound and light in strange ways. Lieutenant Dong Yun had been quietly listening to their conversation. Now, he spoke up. In military training, they teach us that the most dangerous enemies are the ones we do not recognize as enemies. But maybe the same thing is true for friends. Maybe the most valuable allies are the ones we do not recognize as intelligent. This idea stayed with Hana as their ship approached the alien moon. Through the window, Kepler 442c looked exactly the same as it had 3 years ago. The same swirling clouds, the same pearl-like glow. But somehow, Hana felt like the moon was watching their approach. Beginning descent procedures, announced the ship's pilot. Landing in 30 minutes. Hana checked her equipment one more time. She had brought better medical supplies this time, and more food to share. She had also brought a small music player loaded with hundreds of songs from Earth. If she found Dalbert again, she wanted to share more music with the creature that had seemed to love her grandmother's lullaby. What if your alien friend is not there? Minho asked as they prepared for landing. Hana smiled. Then we will do good research and learn new things about an amazing world. But Minho, I have a feeling that Dalbert will be there. I think it has been waiting for me to come back. As their ship broke through the clouds and the crystal forests came into view, Hana felt her heart beat faster. The trees seemed to sparkle, more brightly than she remembered, and the glowing moss appeared to pulse in patterns that looked almost like signals. Look at that, Hyejin said, pointing at her computer screen. I am picking up some kind of organized electromagnetic activity from the forest. It is very faint, but it has structure, almost like a code. Could it be natural? Lieutenant Dongyun asked. Maybe, Hyejin replied. But it is more complex than anything I have seen from plants before. Hana looked down at the approaching forest and felt a shiver of excitement. Maybe, just maybe, she was about to prove that her story about Dalbert was true. Maybe she was about to show the world that humans were not alone in the universe, and that kindness could build bridges between the stars. The ship touched down in the same clearing where Captain Jinwoo Park had rescued her 3 years earlier. As Hana stepped out onto the crystal moon's surface, she breathed in the clean air and listened to the musical sound of wind through the trees. Somewhere in the forest, she was certain, Dalbert was listening too. The research team spent their first day on Kepler 442c, setting up their base camp near the crystal forest. Hana could barely contain her excitement as she walked through the sparkling trees, but she tried to act like a normal scientist doing normal research. She did not want her teammates to think she was obsessed with finding one particular creature. Dr. Hyejin Yu was busy with her electronic equipment, scanning for radio signals and energy patterns. The electromagnetic activity is stronger than I detected from the ship, she told the others. It seems to be coming from the crystal trees themselves. Could the crystals be some kind of natural radio? Asked Lieutenant Donghyun Bae as he helped set up their sleeping tents. I do not know, Hyejin replied. But the patterns are very complex. Too complex to be random. Dr. Minho Choi was more interested in collecting samples of the glowing moss. Hana, look at this, he called. The moss seems to pulse in response to sound. Watch. He clapped his hands loudly, and the moss around his feet glowed brighter for a few seconds. Hana was only half listening to her teammates. She kept looking toward the area where her shuttle had crashed 3 years ago. The waterfall and the cave where she had found Dalbert were only a few kilometers away. She wanted to go there immediately, but she knew she had to wait for the right moment. That night, as the others slept in their tents, Hana lay awake listening to the sounds of the alien forest. The wind through the crystal trees made soft musical notes, different from the sounds she remembered. It was as if the forest itself had learned new songs. On the second day, Hannah convinced her team to explore the crash site. "I want to collect samples from the area where my shuttle went down," she explained. The impact might have created interesting changes in the local ecosystem. They hiked through the crystal forest following the stream that Hannah remembered so well. Everything looked the same, but also somehow different. The crystal trees seemed taller and more complex. The glowing moss formed patterns that looked almost like pathways through the forest. "Hannah," Hyejin said, checking her equipment as they walked, "the electromagnetic signals are getting much stronger as we move in this direction. It is like we are walking toward some kind of transmitter." When they reached the waterfall, Hannah felt her heart begin to beat faster. The cave entrance was still there, hidden behind the falling water. But she could not go inside with her teammates watching. She needed to find a way to return alone. "Let us set up temporary instruments here," she suggested. "We can monitor the area for a few days and see what we learn." That evening, back at base camp, Hannah volunteered to take the first night watch. "I will monitor our equipment and make sure nothing disturbs our research area," she told the others. "Are you sure?" Minho asked. "You seem tired from all the hiking today." "I am fine," Hannah replied. "Besides, I like the quiet of the alien night. It helps me think." After her teammates were asleep, Hannah gathered her flashlight and some emergency supplies. She left a note explaining that she was doing additional research and would return before morning. Then she slipped out of camp and headed toward the waterfall. The crystal moon had 2 small moons of its own, and their light made the forest glow with silver and blue shadows. Hannah found her way easily along the stream. As she got closer to the waterfall, she started to feel nervous and excited at the same time. What if Dalbit was not there? What if her teammates were right, and she had imagined the whole thing? But what if the creature was there, and it remembered her? Hannah was still 100 meters from the waterfall when she heard it. The sound made her stop walking and hold her breath. It was a melody, soft and beautiful, echoing through the crystal trees. And it was a melody she knew very well. It was her grandmother's lullaby. The same song she had sung to comfort Dalbit 3 years ago. But now it was being sung in a voice that was definitely not human. The voice was deeper than a human voice, with musical tones that no human throat could make. But the melody was perfect, every note exactly as Hannah remembered singing it in the cave. With her heart pounding, Hannah followed the sound through the trees. The singing grew louder as she approached the waterfall. But it was not coming from the cave. It was coming from a clearing beside the stream where the crystal trees formed a natural circle. Hannah pushed through the last few trees and stepped into the clearing. What she saw there made her gasp out loud and almost drop her flashlight. Dalbit was there, magnificent and healthy, its silver fur shining in the moonlight. The creature was even more beautiful than Hannah remembered, with colors flowing through its fur like liquid light. But Dalbit was not alone. Around the clearing, sitting quietly in the shadows of the crystal trees, were at least 20 other creatures, like Dalbit. Some were larger, some smaller, but all had the same changing fur and intelligent yellow eyes. They were all looking at Hannah, and they were all singing her grandmother's lullaby. Hannah stood frozen at the edge of the clearing, not sure if she should run or stay. The creatures were all predators, and she was alone and defenseless. But none of them moved toward her. They just kept singing. Then Dalbit stood up and walked slowly toward her. The creature's fur was shifting through beautiful patterns of silver and gold. When it reached Hannah, it stopped just a meter away and looked into her eyes. "Dalbit," Hannah whispered. "You remember me." The creature made a soft musical sound that was almost like a purr. Then it did something that amazed Hannah even more. It began to sing again, but this time it was not her grandmother's lullaby. It was a different song, one that Hannah had sung during those 3 days in the cave. A Korean folk song about friendship and loyalty. Dalbit remembered not just one song, but all the songs Hannah had sung to it. The other creatures in the clearing joined in, creating harmonies that were more beautiful than anything Hannah had ever heard. They were not just copying her songs. They were improving them, adding complex musical layers that made the simple melodies sound like they had been written by the greatest composers of Earth. Tears ran down Hana's cheeks as she listened. These creatures had kept her songs alive for 3 years. They had learned them, practiced them, and shared them with their families or friends. "You are not just animals," she said softly. "You are people. You have culture and memory and art." As if responding to her words, one of the larger creatures stood up. It was even bigger than Dalbit, with fur that seemed to hold patterns like a living tapestry. This creature began to sing a new song, one that Hana had never heard before. But somehow the melody felt familiar. Then she realized what she was hearing. The creatures were singing mathematical concepts. The rhythm and pitch of their songs contained information about numbers, patterns, and relationships. They were not just making music. They were sharing knowledge. Hana sat down on the soft moss at the edge of the clearing. Very carefully, she began to sing along with the creatures. She started with her grandmother's lullaby, the song that had started this incredible friendship. The creatures responded immediately. Their fur brightened, and their harmonies became even more complex. They were having a conversation through music, sharing ideas and emotions across the barrier of species. For hours, Hana sat in the clearing singing with the alien creatures. They taught her new melodies, and she shared more songs from Earth. She sang classical music, pop songs, and even children's nursery rhymes. The creatures learned each song quickly and added their own beautiful harmonies. As the alien dawn began to light up the crystal forest, Hana realized she had to return to her team, but she did not want to leave this magical place. "I have to go. Back to my friends," she told Dalbit. "But I will return, I promise." Dalbit approached her one more time and gently touched her hand with its large paw, just like it had done 3 years ago. But this time, the gesture felt different. It felt like a promise from the creature as well. As Hana walked back through the forest toward base camp, her mind was racing with questions and possibilities. These creatures were intelligent. They had language, music, and culture. They had been trying to communicate with humans, using the songs she had taught them as a starting point. But how could she prove this to her teammates? How could she convince the scientific community that humanity had found its first intelligent alien species? And most importantly, how could she protect these amazing beings from people like Admiral Lim, who only saw value in things that could be used for war? When Hana reached the base camp, she found her teammates already awake and worried about her absence. "Hana, where have you been?" Minho asked. "We were about to send out a search party. I went back to the crash site for additional research," Hana replied. "And I found something incredible. Something that is going to change everything we thought we knew about this world." Hyejin looked up from her equipment with excitement. "The electromagnetic activity spiked about 4 hours ago," she said. "It was like every crystal tree in the forest started broadcasting at the same time. Did you see anything unusual?" Hana smiled. "Pack your equipment, everyone. I have something amazing to show you. But first, I need you all to promise me that you will approach this with open minds. What you are about to see might be hard to believe." Lieutenant Donghyun checked his weapon and looked serious. "Is it dangerous?" "No," Hana replied. "It is the most beautiful thing you will ever experience." Dr. Minho Choi stared at the recordings on his computer screen with disbelief. For the past 2 hours, he had been analyzing the sounds that Hana had captured during her night visit to the crystal clearing. What he found there challenged everything. He thought he knew about intelligence and communication. "These are not just animal sounds," he said quietly, looking up at Hana. "The mathematical patterns in these vocalizations are more complex than anything we have seen from Earth animals. They are using prime numbers, geometric sequences, and even what looks like basic algebra." Hana felt a mixture of relief and excitement. Finally, someone believed her. "I told you they were intelligent, Minho. They have been trying to talk to us through music." Dr. Hyejin Yu was equally amazed by her own discoveries. Her electronic equipment had recorded massive amounts of data during the night when Hana had visited the creatures. "The crystal trees are not just plants," she announced. "They are some kind of biological communication network. Every tree in the forest was resonating with the same frequencies while the creatures were singing. Lieutenant Donghyun Bae cleaned his rifle nervously. So we are dealing with aliens that can control an entire forest? That sounds like a military threat to me. No, Hana said firmly. They are not trying to threaten us, they are trying to welcome us. The songs they sang contained information about their world, their history, maybe even maps of other planets. Hyejin nodded as she studied her data. Hana is right. Look at this pattern here. She pointed to a complex waveform on her screen. This section of their song contains what looks like star coordinates, and this part here seems to show the chemical structure of water and other basic elements. They are teaching us their language, Hana realized. Just like I accidentally taught them our songs 3 years ago. Minho was still struggling to accept what the evidence clearly showed. But how is this possible? We have been studying this moon for years. How did we miss signs of an intelligent civilization? Because we were looking for the wrong things, Hana replied. We expected alien intelligence to look like human intelligence, cities, technology, radio signals. But what if their civilization developed in a completely different way? That afternoon, Hana convinced her team to return to the crystal clearing. She wanted them to meet Dalbit and the other creatures face to face. As they hiked through the forest, Hyejin noticed that her equipment was detecting even stronger signals from the crystal trees. It is like the whole forest knows we are coming, she said with wonder. The trees are passing information about our location from one to another. When they reached the clearing beside the waterfall, it was empty. But Hana was not discouraged. She sat down on the soft moss and began to sing her grandmother's lullaby. Her voice echoed through the crystal trees, carried by the natural acoustics of the forest. Within minutes, Dalbit appeared at the edge of the clearing. The magnificent creature moved slowly, its fur shifting through cautious blues and purples. Behind Dalbit, other creatures began to emerge from the forest. Minho grabbed Hana's arm. There are so many of them, he whispered. Are you sure they are safe? Trust them, Hana said. And trust me. Dalbit approached the group of humans carefully. When the creature was close enough, it made a soft musical sound that was clearly a greeting. Then it began to sing. The song that came from Dalbit was unlike anything the humans had ever heard. It started with Hana's lullaby, but then expanded into harmonies that seemed to tell a story. Other creatures joined in, and soon, the clearing was filled with music that was both alien and beautiful. My God, Minho whispered. They are composing in real time. This is improvised music at a level that our best human musicians could never achieve. Hyejin was frantically recording everything. The electromagnetic activity is off the charts, she said. Every crystal tree for kilometers around is participating in this performance. Lieutenant Donghyun slowly put down his rifle. I have never heard anything so beautiful, he said. How could we ever think of these beings as enemies? As the concert continued, Hana noticed something that made her heart race with excitement. Some of the creatures were singing melodies that included mathematical formulas for faster-than-light travel. Others were sharing what looked like medical knowledge encoded in musical patterns. They are giving us gifts, she realized. Knowledge that could advance human civilization by centuries. The largest creature in the group, the one with tapestry-like patterns in its fur, approached Hana directly. It sang a complex melody that seemed to be asking a question. Hana did not understand the specific meaning, but she sensed that this was some kind of test or challenge. Inspired by instinct, Hana began to sing a song about peace and friendship. She chose a simple melody that she hoped would carry the emotional message even if the words could not be translated. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Every creature in the clearing began to glow more brightly. Their fur shifted to warm golds and gentle greens. The large creature touched Hana's shoulder with one massive paw and sang what could only be described as a song of acceptance. I think they just made you their ambassador, Minho said with amazement. Over the next few hours, the creatures shared more of their knowledge through music. They sang about their history, stretching back thousands of years. They had always been a peaceful species, living in harmony with their crystal forest environment. They had developed technology, but it was biological technology that worked with nature instead of against it. "Look at this," Hyejin said, studying her recordings. "They are showing us how they grow the crystal trees. The trees are not just communication devices. They are living computers storing and processing information for the entire species." The creatures also revealed something that shocked the humans. They were not limited to this one moon. Their crystal communication network connected to similar networks on dozens of other worlds. The species that Hana had started calling the Norai, meaning song in Korean, had a civilization that spanned multiple star systems. "We are not just meeting one intelligent species," Hana realized. "We are meeting representatives of an interstellar civilization that has existed for millennia." But the most important revelation came when the large creature sang about recent events. Through their network, the Norai had been observing human activities throughout this sector of space. They knew about human colonies, human technology, and human conflicts. They had been waiting for the right time to make contact, and Hana's act of kindness 3 years ago had convinced them that humans were capable of compassion and worthy of friendship. "They have been studying us," Minho said, "learning about our species the same way we study theirs." The concert began to wind down as the alien sun set behind the crystal trees. But before the creatures departed, Dalbert approached Hana one final time. The alien being sang a melody that was clearly a warning. Through gestures and musical phrases, Dalbert communicated that other humans were coming, humans with weapons and machines that would harm the crystal forest. The Norai had detected the approaching military fleet led by Admiral Lim. "They know about the invasion," Hana said with growing alarm. "Admiral Lim is planning to turn this moon into a military base. She will destroy everything." The creatures began to retreat into the forest, but their message was clear. They wanted to be friends with humanity, but they would defend their world if necessary. They had technology and knowledge that could benefit both species, but only if humans proved they could be trusted. As the team hiked back to their base camp in the darkness, Hana felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. She had become the bridge between two civilizations. The decisions made in the next few days would determine whether humanity gained the greatest allies in the galaxy or created the most powerful enemies they had ever faced. "What do we tell Admiral Lim when she arrives?" Lieutenant Dongyun asked. "We tell her the truth," Hana replied. "We tell her that this moon is home to an intelligent species that wants to be our friend, and we hope that she is wise enough to choose cooperation over conquest." But even as she said the words, Hana feared that Admiral Lim would see the Norai as a threat to be eliminated, rather than allies to be welcomed. The fate of two civilizations now rested in the hands of humans who had never learned to listen to the music of the universe. Admiral Sora Lim's military fleet arrived at Kepler 442c 3 days later, with 12 ships and 500 soldiers. She had come expecting to survey an empty moon and establish a new military base. Instead, she found Dr. Hana Kim waiting for her with an impossible story about intelligent aliens and interstellar civilizations. "Dr. Kim," Admiral Lim said as she walked into the research team's base camp. Her gray uniform was crisp and her voice was cold. "I received your emergency message about delaying the military installation. I hope you have a very good explanation for wasting my time." Hana stood up from the communication equipment where she had been trying to reach Earth with news of their discovery. "Admiral, we have made first contact with an intelligent alien species. This moon is their home, and they want to establish peaceful relations with humanity." Admiral Lim looked around the camp and saw only 4 human researchers and their basic equipment. "I see no aliens, Dr. Kim. I see no cities, no technology, no signs of civilization. What I see is a scientist who has been alone too long and is starting to imagine things." "The Norai civilization is different from ours," Hana explained desperately. "They use biological technology instead of metal and plastic. The crystal trees are their computers and communication systems. Their entire culture is based on music and harmony." "Music?" Admiral Lim repeated with obvious disbelief. "You want me to stop a military operation because you think the trees can sing?" Dr. Minho Choi stepped forward with his data tablet. "Admiral, I have recorded proof of complex mathematical communications. These beings are using advanced concepts in their vocalizations. They understand physics and chemistry at levels that rival our best scientists. Admiral Lim glanced at the data, but did not seem impressed. Computer analysis can find patterns in anything, Dr. Choi. Even random noise can look meaningful if you search hard enough. Lieutenant Dong-Hyun Bae had been quietly listening to the conversation. Now he spoke up. Admiral, I recommend that you see the aliens for yourself before making any decisions. As a military officer, I believe we should gather all possible intelligence before proceeding. Very well, Admiral Lim said after a moment. You have 1 hour to show me these aliens of yours. If I see nothing convincing, my ships will begin bombardment of the crystal formations to clear land for our base. Hana felt panic rising in her chest. 1 hour was not enough time to explain 3 years of careful relationship building, but it was all the time they had. The group hiked quickly through the crystal forest toward the clearing where Hana had first reunited with Dalbit. As they walked, Hyejin pointed out the electromagnetic signals her equipment was detecting from the trees. The entire forest is active, she said. It is like they know we are coming and they are preparing for something. When they reached the clearing by the waterfall, it was empty. Admiral Lim checked her watch impatiently. I see no aliens, Dr. Kim. Just trees and rocks. Hana sat down on the soft moss and began to sing. She chose her grandmother's lullaby, the song that had started everything 3 years ago. Her voice echoed through the crystal trees, carried by the natural acoustics of the forest. For several minutes, nothing happened. Admiral Lim started to turn away. This is a waste of time. I have a military operation to run. Then Dalbit stepped into the clearing. The magnificent creature moved slowly, its silver fur shifting through cautious colors. Admiral Lim stopped, walking, and stared. Even she could not deny that this was something extraordinary. What is that thing? She whispered. That is Dalbit, Hana said softly. The alien I helped 3 years ago, and I think it wants to help me now. Dalbit approached the group of humans carefully. When the creature was close enough, it looked directly at Admiral Lim and began to sing. The song was complex and beautiful, filled with harmonies that no earth animal could create. Other creatures began to emerge from the forest. Soon the clearing was surrounded by dozens of the Norai, all singing together in perfect harmony. The crystal trees themselves seemed to join the performance, resonating with musical tones that made the entire forest come alive with sound. Admiral Lim stood frozen, her mouth open in amazement. She had spent her entire career preparing for war, but nothing had prepared her for this moment of pure beauty and peace. This is impossible, she said quietly. The largest of the Norai, the one with tapestry patterns in its fur, approached Admiral Lim directly. It began to sing a new melody, one that contained mathematical formulas and scientific concepts encoded in musical form. It is teaching you, Hana explained, sharing knowledge as a gift of friendship. But Admiral Lim's military training made her suspicious. If they are so advanced, why do they live in forests instead of cities? Where are their weapons and defenses? Dalbit seemed to understand the question. The creature moved to a nearby crystal tree and placed its paw against the smooth surface. Immediately, the tree began to glow brighter. Other trees throughout the forest responded, creating a network of light that stretched to the horizon. Their entire world is their technology, Hyejin said with wonder. They do not build separate machines. They grow them. The demonstration continued as the Norai showed the humans more of their capabilities. They could make the crystal trees produce any chemical compound, from basic medicines to complex materials. They could communicate instantly across vast distances through their biological network. They could even manipulate gravity and energy in ways that human science did not yet understand. This technology could change everything for humanity, Minho said. Clean energy, instant communication across space, medical advances that could eliminate disease. Admiral Lim was beginning to understand the magnitude of what she was seeing. Why are they showing us this? What do they want in return? The large Norai sang another complex melody. Through gestures and musical phrases, it communicated a simple message. They wanted to be friends with humanity. But first humans had to prove they could be trusted. They are testing us, Hana realized. They know we have the power to destroy their forest, but they are hoping we will choose cooperation instead of conquest. Admiral Lim was quiet for a long time, thinking about the implications. Her military fleet could easily destroy the crystal trees and establish the base as planned. But doing so would cost humanity the greatest opportunity in its history. These beings have been watching us, she said finally. What have they learned about human nature? Dalbit approached Hana and gently touched her hand, just as it had done 3 years ago. Then the creature began to sing the story of their first meeting. Through music and emotion, it told Admiral Lim about Hana's kindness to a wounded alien, about the songs that had healed both physical and emotional pain, about the compassion that had convinced an entire species that humans were worth knowing. 1. Humans' act of kindness changed how they see our entire species, Hana said with tears in her eyes. They judged us not by our weapons or our power, but by our capacity for compassion. Admiral Lim looked around the clearing at the beautiful alien beings who had shared their greatest secrets as gifts of friendship. She thought about her military career, about all the conflicts and wars she had seen, about the emptiness of a life spent preparing for battle. Stand down the bombardment, she said into her radio. All ships are to maintain defensive positions only. No hostile actions without my direct orders. Admiral, came the confused voice of her fleet commander. What are your instructions regarding the base construction? Admiral Lim looked at Dalbit, at Hana, at the crystal trees glowing with living light. Change of mission, she said. We are establishing humanity's first diplomatic embassy to an alien civilization. Dr. Kim will serve as our chief ambassador. The Norai seemed to understand her decision. Their singing became even more beautiful, filled with joy and hope. The crystal trees throughout the forest pulsed with brilliant light, creating a celebration that could be seen from space. Over the following weeks, Admiral Lim worked with Hana to establish formal contact between humanity and the Norai civilization. The aliens shared their advanced technologies freely, asking only that humans promise to use the knowledge for peace and healing, rather than war and destruction. The crystal moon became a center of learning and cooperation. Human scientists worked alongside Norai teachers to understand biological technology that could solve Earth's energy and environmental problems. Artists from both species collaborated on musical compositions that bridged the gap between worlds. 6 months later, Hana sat in the same clearing where she had first reunited with Dalbit. The alien being rested beside her, its fur glowing with the warm colors of contentment. Together they watched human and Norai children playing together, learning each other's languages through songs and games. You waited 3 years to return. My favor, Hana said to Dalbit. But it was never about debt, was it? It was about showing that kindness creates more kindness. Dalbit made a soft musical sound that Hana had learned was the Norai equivalent of laughter. Then the creature began to sing a new song, one that blended human melodies with Norai harmonies. It was a song about friendship across the stars, about the power of compassion to unite different worlds, about the music that connects all living things.